I think the best advice that I've ever gotten as a writer, I probably ignored because basically of prejudice, because I heard at some point, yes, there are people who plan everything,
Mm.
and there are people who, pantser versus plotter, people who kind of
Mm.
take it more as it comes. And I thought, well, that second group of people, they're just undisciplined. Clearly, I'm not going to write like that. And I just kept trying to plan more. Plan, but
Mythical
clearly,
beings.
I was failing because my planning wasn't good enough. If I planned harder,
Yes.
that's just all I need to do. And I thank God that I finally just decided to start writing something without doing anything more than vague planning. I do have a plan to get to the end of a book, but I absolutely never write that down. Because if I write it down, I feel restricted by it.
This is the Crit RPG Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Crit RPG Podcast, the only podcast offering you extremely circumstantial parental advice. With me today is Erin Ampersand, author of Apocalypse Parenting. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, we've been talking for 45 minutes, so yeah.
But there's no screaming from downstairs, so we're good for now.
Yet. If you want to listen to that, you can hop on Patreon and check it out if you want. But otherwise, we're going to be hopping into the main podcast now. And we've been dancing around this topic. I mean, we've talked about school system. We've talked about system apocalypses in general. We've talked about growing up and kids and the mental ability and faculties of kids. So that was kind of fun. But what we haven't talked about in depths yet is your book, Apocalypse Parenting, which is not a guide.
Not explicitly, but I do feel like some people have gotten, some people have said that they've been inspired by my protagonist, and I'm pretty honored by that. There's cool. There's a lot of things that happen in the book too that, obviously, like, how do you teach your kid to fight monsters is not necessarily universally applicable, but and how do you keep two kids that could easily kill each other from killing each other? Maybe not universally applicable, but that more so you're going to have things that kind of carry over, because it would take a lot of effort for my actual children to kill each other, but if they really put their mind to it, they could, and they could definitely hurt each other. So the parenting tactics that you'd use in an apocalypse aren't necessarily completely separate from the parenting tactics you'd use in normal life. So
just as always, I know it's probably not a part of your system, but just skip the suppression colors. Just
no.
There you go. Good. All right. But yeah, I mean, tell me about how did you come to write that book, and how did it come to be?
Well, so I read a lot. I've always read a lot. And when I got into lit RPG, I discovered the post-apocalyptic genre, and I've always loved kind of apocalyptic literature. So I kind of went on a binge. I was reading a whole bunch of stuff like that, and I was enjoying myself quite a bit. But I noticed a bunch of things that, you're reading a book, you've got your suspension of disbelief. You're like, okay, I can see why you did that, but it triggers that thing. It triggers that question in you, yeah, I don't know if I completely believe that, but moving on. And in this sort of sense, there were a couple things. One book I read had kids basically rescued from the apocalypse and put someplace else so that people didn't have to think about them. Several other books were like, oh yes, children don't get superpowers. You can't get superpowers until you're, 12, 13, 14. And I'm like, well, that's convenient. Because it just completely dodges the whole question of how do you deal with a 9-year-old that can shoot fireballs? How do you deal with a toddler that's as strong as an adult? And I was like, yeah, I guess I can see why the authors wouldn't want to write that. That would be hard to write, and it's not really the story that they're trying to tell. Their protagonist is just, off adventuring all by usually his self, occasionally herself, but usually I think, especially in the books that I chose to read, himself. He doesn't really have a lot of like ties holding him down and stuff like that. But I wonder what it is like for the people that can't just, go off and do whatever. And I wonder how, you would deal if the system, this incredibly cruel system that's just tormenting humanity and, doing unkind things to everybody, if it wasn't so inexplicably kind about human children, how would that go? And after a while, I was like, I had one particular idea because I was sitting there and I was thinking about my youngest, and I was like, oh, if this kid got the ability to pick a superpower, basically, what superpower would my kids pick? And my youngest at the time had this stuffed animal that was like, they were like this. Like, I have photos of this child like in a little bounce chair with the stuffed animal, and probably like 25% of all photos ever taken of this child feature this stuffed animal. And I was like, no problems. No problems. I know what this child would do. They would make uh they would make their little giraffe stuffy able to talk back to them. And I was like, haha, that would be funny. I wonder what it would do then. And so I came up with that is spoilers for the first like 10 pages. That is what the 3-year-old in my book does. Turns her little turtle stuffy into an artificial intelligence. And everything else kind of came from that. And I more or less, I thought I was thinking about all of this kind of in the background of my head as I'm reading all these other books. And I more or less just started writing. And I think that was very fortunate, because this is far from the first book that I've tried to write, but I have always done a lot of planning that I thought I needed to do, because a lot of people told me all of these ways to plan your story and ways to better plan your story and all of this. And I always 20 to 50,000 words in, hated what I'd written, just absolutely hated it. Completely despised it. I felt like the characters weren't true to themselves. I felt like I was too tied up in the future to write the present of the book. No good. But with this story, I didn't have such expectations for myself. I just kind of started writing, and apparently that's just a whole lot better for me as an author. And people really responded to it. So I was just posting serially on Royal Road, and people were like, oh my God, a middle-aged woman protagonist. That's insane. Middle-aged women.
0.5 stars.
What?
0.5 stars.
No.
Instantly.
Middle-aged women don't exist. And I'm like, yeah, actually, now that you pointed it out, that's kind of true. Like, what? After a woman's like, 30, like, she gets to be there as like maybe like a side character. Maybe she like gives a few words of wisdom or something, but you don't really have a lot of middle-aged women protagonists in just about anything. Certainly adventure stories. And you don't have a lot of parent protagonists in adventure stories either. We sort of say, if you are a parent, you basically don't exist for this whole genre that everybody loves. Maybe if your kids get kidnapped, you can go rescue them. But as soon as you're back with your kids, that's it. You're no longer interesting. You no longer have a story. We don't want to follow you. And I mean, certainly it does take a strange set of circumstances before a parent will do dangerous things in the company of their child. But that's what I did. I made a strange set of circumstances. Like, that's the great thing about self-publishing and speculative fiction in general. Like, You want to write something? No problem. You just set it up. You write it. You put it on the internet, and other people can just read it. No publishers. If I took this to a publisher, they probably would have been like, "There's no market for this. There's no evidence that anybody. You need to just write these things that we know will be successful, and you're not doing that. So sorry, goodbye." But self-publishing, whatever. What kind of books have been popular in our genre? Like Beware of Chicken, a story about a fighting chicken on a farm. Well, it's not just about the chicken, but
it's mostly about a guy not like dodging the hero, like dodging the hero's journey. Like that's the main thing.
But the chicken is the title character, and
yes.
there's certainly a whole bunch of like fighting farm animals. I
absolutely.
There's a book about an isekai Roomba. There's a book where a man is transmigrated into the body of a female ant. And we're good with this. We're all good with this. But then, it's kind of funny to me because a lot of people, they're like, yeah, I'll read this isekai Roomba. I'll read this, guy transmigrated into the body of a female ant. But then even in our genre, a lot of people are like, apocalypse parenting. Yeah, I'm not a parent. But you are an ant? A female ant?
Yes. Yes.
But I guess
I'm just 10,000 hornets in a trench coat.
I feel like I've got a lot of good reviews. I've done something good here. I at this point, 3 books in, I'm actually pretty proud of myself. I came in as a semi-finalist in this year's self-published science fiction contest, which had there were over 200 entrants from around the globe. And this wasn't a lit RPG contest. This was like all science fiction. There were a few other people. There were I think 4 or 5 other lit RPG authors that entered. But I was competing against a lot of like serious sci-fi, like real sci-fi. And the judges looking at my weird, silly book next to this serious sci-fi said, you know what? This is real good. And I can't tell you how proud that makes me feel.
That's very good.
But yeah, seriously, maybe you're not a parent, but you've had parents. You may wish to understand other people who are parents better. This is my shout out to you and your listeners. Give it a try. I think you might be surprised. I've had a lot of people who aren't parents say that they really enjoyed it. And you have parents.
Yes. Do I? Who knows? I have a whole tragic backstory. No, I'm kidding. Now, people on Facebook have been universally very positive about it, right? So they've always many people we you mentioned, or we talked about the cover a little bit, right? Because it's kind of hard to make a cover that really encapsulates your novel.
It's terrible. I get people who are like, yes, I love this. And, one of the judges in the self-published science fiction contest, he's like, this is amazing. This cover is such a perfect promise for the book. But on the other hand, it is, it's here behind me. It is kind of, it's telling you a lot of different things. We've got the angry, sort of harsh font of apocalypse. We've got the silly, kind of blocky font of parenting. We've got the monster's foreleg in the background. We've got the protagonist with her ramshackle weapons and her, galoshes and stuff like that. There's a lot going on there. And I can understand why some people are pushed away, but I will say it is a hard series to make a cover for because we don't see a lot of parents in adventure media. And to make a book that is about a parent, everybody looks at it and assumes it's for kids.
Yep.
If you do anything that relates to children in any way, our mental trigger is this is for kids. And trying to do something that fights against that, I don't have a roadmap here.
So you're saying it's very hard to make that apparent?
Yes.
The puns will not stop. The puns will not stop until morale improves.
I'm here for it. I enjoy puns. I try to restrain myself while writing, but I enjoy a good pun. And a bad, honestly,
I
I enjoy bad puns too. I just enjoy puns.
there bad puns is an oxymoron. It's like I don't know, like dry water or good morning. um, right? No, like man, we talked about it was a lot. It was really a lot. Like I wrote down some notes here. I think like the first thing I kind of want to talk about is that I think many lit RPG authors and like system apocalypse authors, or I should say isekai apocalypse authors, are I think they're mostly just scared about writing kids dying, right? That's like because that's really oof, and a lot of our readers they kind of want to have a sort of escapism, right? And so if there's if you pick up a book and there's kids in there, right? You need to make really sure that there's either going to be promised, okay, kids are never going to die in this, or that you kind of get it over with quickly, I guess. I don't know. I
So
have no solution.
I know it's definitely a delicate dance that I have to do because I don't I don't want to write a squishy fluffy series where you don't
Mm,
ever worry about anybody, nothing
mm,
bad ever happens to anybody because you can't it's very
mm,
difficult to believe in that. It's very difficult to buy into that. But I'm also a
and
parent and I don't want to
mm,
sit here watching kids die either. So like
mm,
um I don't want to like give anybody any spoilers or any promises,
mm,
but like I will say that I am a parent and I guess I will say things are
mm.
probably going to work out well for the protagonist children in the end. They like
Yeah,
everyone else they will pay some costs, but they
yeah.
will probably be okay in the end.
I I just think like I mean if we're looking at the system apocalypses that are out there with as you said like the very sadistic kind of system and everything like this, I think the first thought that for some people might be there is going to be like, okay, at some point the main character is going to have to like murder a child, right? And that's like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
hard to sell people on.
No,
I
so
know, like I know it's not in your book, but I'm saying like
no,
that's
I totally understand that.
mm,
What I don't want to give away too much detail,
mm,
but what
mm,
I think I can say that won't spoiler things too much is that, um, you know, I mentioned before the comparison to Dungeon Crawler Carl and
mm,
how you mentioned in there, like the aliens in charge more or less
mm,
forced um,
mm,
contestants to kill other contestants.
yeah.
Um, the there the aliens in charge of the system's descent onto Earth in my series are not the only group of aliens out there, and they do not have unlimited power. So
Mm,
humans are not explicitly required to kill and betray other humans. They are heavily
mm,
encouraged to,
yeah.
but explicitly required? No,
Mm.
no.
And I think that we were talking about this before we began, or even just a couple of minutes ago, that like the entire idea of like why I don't like reading system apocalypses is the reason why you like it, or the flip side of it, right? So I said like, hey, I don't really want to see people being ugly to each other. It's not something I enjoy. It makes me anxious. Um, I will write it, but I won't read it. But I, I will let you guess how that works. Not well. Um, so you said that you actually like the idea of like people banding together and overcoming odds.
Yeah, I like people having the choice to be
Mm-hmm.
ugly to each other. People maybe even having the incentive or encouragement to be ugly to each other,
Mm-hmm.
but making the choice in maybe sometimes even against all odds, taking a risk to not be ugly to each other. I like the community. I believe I believe in humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I believe a lot of things about humanity. I mean, I think COVID showed us that we certainly have a bunch of people who will not do the slightest thing to protect or care for the people around them. But, you know, the opposite is true as well. Like COVID has also shown us that a bunch of people will go out of their way, will really work hard to protect everyone around us, around them as much as possible. And so there are people in my books, it's not like everybody just, oh my gosh, the aliens are here, kumbaya, we've all come together, we're all a team, yay! But I mean, let's be real here. If you've got two sets of people, one of whom is, just out for themselves, right? And another group who wants everybody to succeed. The self-interested group can easily have a lot of short-term success, but they're going to have trouble as things get bigger, building alliances and stuff like that. And the more let's say the less sociopathic group is going to
altruistic.
The more altruistic group is easily going to find allies and friends. And so I think it's almost inevitable that in the end, the most powerful groups are going to be the ones that care for people.
All right. So after you switched your headset on because we had some sound issues, let's jump to the next question. And if we interrupted something very, very important and you're going to be in the podcast going like, wait, were they going to be talking about this very, very exciting thing that I'm very, very sorry that we both forgot?
We did.
We both did, yeah. Anyway, moving on. So, what's the best advice you've ever gotten as a writer?
So I thought, because you gave me a list of things that you were planning to ask, and I was thinking about this, and honestly, I think the best advice that I've ever gotten as a writer, I probably ignored, to be honest, because basically of prejudice, because I, heard at some point, yes, there are people who plan everything, and there are people who, pantser versus plotter, people who kind of take it more as it comes. And I thought, well, that second group of people, they're just, undisciplined and stuff like that. So, sure, some people write like that, but clearly I'm not going to write like that. And so I just ignored the fact that these people existed for decades. And I just kept trying to plan more. But clearly I was failing because my planning wasn't good enough. If I planned harder, that's just all I need to do. So I read, and there's lots of books out there telling you how to plan your writing. There's lots of, advice from people telling you how to plan your writing. I had in English, I was dual major in college, and so I got a lot of advice from professors telling you how to plan your writing. And they mentioned, that some people are more not like that. And I was just like, yeah, whatever, but not me. And I thank God that I finally just decided to start writing something without doing anything more than vague planning, because otherwise, I don't know. I think maybe I would have eventually figured out that I was my own problem, but it had been a few decades and I hadn't figured it out yet. So it doesn't look good for me in that respect. But yeah, I do have a plan to get to the end of a book. I have a plan to get to the end of the series, but I absolutely never write that down, because if I write it down, I feel restricted by it. And if I feel restricted by it, I don't change it. And when I was writing before, I'd be writing the opening pages of a book, and I'd be thinking about the end of the book. I'd be thinking about chapter 30 of the book and not focused on what I was writing right then. And I'd be thinking, oh, my main character has to show these qualities so that they can do this later.
Oh,
and it's like,
yeah.
And everybody just ended up feeling so artificial, so cardboard, so stilted. And like when I transitioned from one thing to another, again, it just felt like it felt so arbitrary. And I think that there are authors who do plan, who can avoid those things, but I do think that they are weaknesses. There's weaknesses to both writing styles. I want to be clear about that. The weakness of pantsing, or just flying by the seat of your pants, is you can easily, like, you have to be very aggressive about just tossing out huge sections of what you wrote because you flew in the wrong direction. And it can be easy to sort of lose the thread of the plot if you're not careful.
Or the
But
paragraph.
yeah, the weaknesses of planning. There's weaknesses there too, which is that you. I think it's easier for authors to sort of just have things happen and not completely make sense because they had already decided this is what was going to happen. You know, if you ever have a character do something in a book that really seems out of character for them, I think it's a good indication that the author was a plotter and had decided a long time ago that this character was going to do this and didn't re-examine. That's not saying...
Or they were a pantser and completely wrote in the wrong direction, and then were like, "Oh wait, shit, I wanted to go there," and then were like, "Oh, shiny," and they like jump back onto the main thing.
It's possible, and as I said, I'm not saying that either writing style is inherently better. The only reason that I'm offering criticisms at all is because I'm hoping, if there's a listener out there like me who's just smashing their face into a wall over and over because they're like, this one is inherently better, and this other one clearly has weaknesses. There are weaknesses to both approaches. That's all I'm trying to say. And
absolutely.
For me, the weaknesses of plotting were more crippling. And I didn't realize it. I just kept dragging myself forward with my busted leg. Like, this is gonna work! This is gonna work!
Rigid pants. I don't know. Like, I mean, this morning I thought about this because the first couple of books I wrote, I also plotted heavily. And then I was like, oh no, this is not for me. And I actually I actually lost all love of writing because of it. Because I started the book and I wrote it, and then it was like, these characters make no sense. Like, this is just like plot stuff happening. And then I started writing Torchbearer, and I just didn't care about anything. I just went wherever I wanted to, and it felt great. It felt awesome. And then I finished the book, and I was like, this sucks. This is terrible. Like the characters like are just going on about the emotions like 5 times. Like, it's like I had like eight times I wrote the same like emotional spiral 8 times in the first version, and I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. And then I talked to Travis Baldry, who was like, I hate doing things twice. I want to put to pants, but no, I just plot. I'm like, that actually sounds like very reasonable advice, even though it's not advice. So what I do now is like it's not really a mixture. I wouldn't even call it a mixture. I have plotted my entire book out, but I think I have the very, very firm belief that you cannot know how to plot a book until you've finished one. Because the moment you finish a book or a series or whatever, then you know where your weaknesses are, where your problems are, and where your strengths are. And I think before that, both things, like if you plot too much and you never get going, that's bad. But also if you plot too much and then come to the end and like the characters feel like Hollywood cardboard cutouts, yeah, that's terrible. So you need to know like how to alleviate that next time, right? But same thing for like pantsing. If you pants so much and like you driving into like weird corners, and then you need to know, okay, maybe I need to plot that. So what I do right now is I have like a really, really huge like outline that is kind of close, but not really. So I have like everything that needs to happen like in the 8 beats. I have 13 beats that need to happen. I don't have anything planned out as far as like when does she get new powers, but I do have her like emotional journey planned because I don't want to get stuck in the emotional stuff again. Now, the next point is I kind of at each of these plot points, I guess, whenever I get to them, I blow them up, like I expand them. So I write like a couple of paragraphs, what needs to happen, and then I need to take each paragraph and turn each paragraph into a chapter. And I've actually even started to like write down what needs to happen in each paragraph while I'm doing it. So before I start writing, I go like, oh, actually, like in this chapter, she needs to decide this, then do that, and do this, and do that, and do this, because I'm close enough to know how she feels, right?
Yeah.
And then I just write that. And this actually works pretty well for me because I'm both close enough to know how she feels and what the previous emotions were, that I also kind of can think about how she would act. And the last part, if I am plotting and know who the characters are, because I've written them before and I've written a lot about them before, then I can really plot, because then my characters aren't wooden. So I write the characters first and I pants the characters. Then I take what I've taken out of that and put that in a plotting outline, and then I pants between, like it's a really weird mix of everything, but it works really well for me.
I think everybody, probably everybody who's successful anyway, is probably some kind of mix. Like, it's not fair to say that I don't plot at all, because I do. I do a lot with plot, and I always have a goal, and I always have at least a path that I could take to that. Just I have a weird hang up where if I write it down, I feel limited by that. So the plotting and the planning is all purely up here at this point.
That's
So,
good. I mean, like, obviously it kind of works, right?
yeah,
You're like at 400 ratings on Amazon.
around there, yeah. But I mean,
that's good.
I think everybody's just got to find a way that works for them, and it's. I mean, I think people can share advice and find. It's not like each. Yeah, you can definitely like. There's going to be commonalities, but I think that everybody is going to have their own process to some degree.
I think it was Ravensdagger, either Ravensdagger or Shirt, who said that advice isn't there to tell you what not to do. It's there to warn you of things that are hard to do. So, right?
I could see that.
He I don't know how he pointed it out, but it was actually really good advice. It's in the roundtable discussion that we had, I think, end of May. So if you want to, you can listen to that. And
Sure.
yeah, actually, really good one. I really enjoyed that one. It was really nice. Okay, but while we're talking about the whole, things we're doing differently, what is something besides the plotting that you have learned that you now do differently or would do differently the next time you start a story?
So that is kind of a. So I mentioned the decades of failure, right? I mentioned the decades of failure. So one thing that I think has probably been bad for me in a purely like reach/financial sense is the fact that as soon as I got done writing book one, and audio companies started reaching out to me and stuff, I was like, oh, I can publish a book. I'm gonna publish a book. And I published it, and then it became a stub on Royal Road, and my audience on Royal Road stopped growing. And I think if I had just kept writing for longer and then say published all 3 books between like January of this year and now, I think I would be a lot more popular than I am. But it's hard for me to say like I made the wrong choice. Like, if you look at it in a vacuum, like, you're like, well, that's clearly the wrong choice. And for another author with more like self-confidence and stuff, I would certainly say like, don't, if you're doing well on Royal Road, don't rush to ebook. There's really no need for that. But emotionally, you know, the satisfaction, the self-confidence that I've gotten from being a published author, I think has been a big factor in allowing me to continue to write. And at the end of the day, that's what's most important is, you know, being able to continue to write. So while I wouldn't say that I would have done anything differently if I could go back and tell my past self with this series, because I think, you know, for internal personal reasons, it was the right choice. I will say with my next series, I'm not going to like rush to publication. I'll probably get it either completely written or close to completely written before I leave Royal Road. I think it's sort of hamstringing myself there.
It is time. I've done it. I finally launched Genesis of the Sacred Machine, my own little book, in its definitive edition. So, if you want to, you can check it out right now on Royal Road. There's a link below the video. Other than that, I really hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I could use some of your support. Go check out our Patreon, or maybe just leave a like, a follow, or whatever it is on the platform that you're on. Anyway, thank you so much, and let's get on with the show. So I think many people actually, they're also rushing their release a little bit. I mean, I certainly was thinking about it, right? So I was very lucky, actually, that the first two versions of Torchbearer were not very much to Royal Road's liking, which is good. The first one didn't really... No, like the first one didn't really take off, and the second one is like a deeply introspective, very complicated tale of like lots of layers of metaphors. People don't like that.
Multiple repetitive emotional spirals? Or was that the first one?
That's version 0.1, and then the second version is up right now. It's actually way better in this regard. And then I did it again, and the newest version isn't even up yet. But I'm not going to touch it anymore. Like it's good where it is. Maybe I'll like fiddle with the first chapter, but nothing beyond that. Because like I'll still have to like do the line edit on that one. Okay. Anyway,
I love editing. I know that makes me an extreme weirdo as an author.
Oh, I love editing too. Yeah, sure. But the thing is, like, I did it already 4 times, and now it's the 5th time, and it's 243,000 words.
That is a lot of words.
That is a lot of words, yes. So I have to like kind of like think about. I think I'm going to hire a line editor and go like, please do this for me. Thank you very much. I was gonna have to find a good one, but I was very lucky in that like it didn't really take off because I know I'm not going to like make millions with this book. It's a good, like I like this book, and there's people who like this book, and I'm okay with that. I always like to quote this one person who gave me a review that said like the author's podcast's great, his book convoluted, which is like, ooh, ouch, brother.
That's rough.
That's rough, yeah. But like, I think he has a point. Like they all had a point. Like the version that they read is still kind of convoluted. It is hard to get into because the main character is very unlikable at the start. And so it's not going to get any easier to read. Like it's not going to get like any less complicated. And I don't even like know my rating anymore. I checked it once, and then I was like, okay, this is not very good. I don't want it anymore. Like it was like below 4 or something.
I think the reason that I was checking out your stuff, and I checked out Torchbearer a little bit, but I really enjoyed your the band story that you had up there.
Yeah.
Which I know you're not getting back to for a bit. But
yeah, band is actually pretty fun. Like every morning in the shower, I plot band like every morning, like because it's such an easy story to write for me. Like I love this thing, but I promised I will finish Torchbearer, and I'm really into Torchbearer beta right now. Like really digging that. Like it's really fucking fun. And the only thing I really worry about is that people don't get to the fun part where all the numbers go up, because it's like the first book is very oof. But I think I changed enough so that people are like, okay, yeah, I can see the bare bones of like a good lit RPG story here. So we'll see. We'll see when we read this.
I will when you get your next version up, I'll definitely check it out. So
cool. Yeah, dope. Yeah, I'll send you something in a minute when we're done. Remind me. But yeah, like the good part is like people didn't like it, and now I have all the fucking time in the world because I got a good job that allows me to write on and off sometimes. I have the podcast. I have other stuff that I'm doing, on the side. So I'm not financially depending on writing books, which is
It's
good because then I can do
yes.
it as a hobby.
Yeah, it's a good
Mm,
place to be. I mean, I think that's kind
mm,
of the dirty secret of
mm,
authors is that, I mean, very few of us are financially supporting ourselves.
mm,
I mean, I think I looked at it, and it doesn't take that many sales to be. I think you have to sell like 12 books or something to be like in
mm,
the top like 50% of authors, and you need to
mhm,
sell like 100 books to be in the top like 2 5 or 2% or something
mm,
stupid like that. Just absolutely stupid. But I mean,
mhm,
you know, a lot of us, you said you've got a solid job that gives you enough free time that you can write.
mm,
Um, you know, I am a stay-at-home parent right now, and fortunately my kids are old enough that I can occasionally get time to write.
mhm,
And my husband has a good enough job to allow me to be a stay-at-home parent. And
mm.
I mean, that's a privilege. It's a
Yes.
privilege. If somebody's out there working two jobs or working one job that makes them
Mm,
work 70 hours a week,
mm.
they're gonna have a real hard time writing their
Yes.
masterpiece, and that's
That
that's
is.
not on them.
That being said, Toni Morrison did write Beloved at 500 words each night. And Neil Gaiman wrote Coraline at 50 words each night. It's the consistency.
It's true.
Um, but again, also like that is all the advice I can give to that point because I mean, when I was a struggling student, I still wrote, right? I wasn't always. I mean, I'm not well off right now, right? I have to work. It's not like I've been born with a silver spoon up my ass. But the fortunate part that I really want to underscore is I like my work. I like what I do. I have fun there, and I feel appreciated and I feel like as though I'm doing something that helps other people, which is nice. Like that's all I want out of a job, and of course money, right? Um, so the writing is, in a way, is a hobby and mostly a way of self fulfillment because I don't, get to fight a lot of demons in the real world. But
Or the demons that you
um,
fight aren't as visible to other people.
I, this very very good quote. It is, but still, I want to say /r/I'm 13 and this is deep.
No, the reason you said I don't get to fight, you said I don't get to fight a lot of demons, and it's true.
Mm,
But I think that's also one of my favorite things about speculative fiction is taking the internal, invisible
mm.
things and
And yeah,
projecting them out into something more cinematic that,
yes,
because I mean, some people like literary fiction where it's just somebody fighting their personal demons for the whole book, but I don't enjoy reading that. I
mm,
like when that internal conflict is more dramatic, more colorful, and I think a lot of us
mm,
do.
yes, absolutely. Like I was just watching this Brandon Sanderson short this morning, where he talks about like the Western literary fiction where it's a guy on a farm, and it's just him working on a farm, and like there's a storm coming, but the entire book is just him thinking about something for like 80, 800 pages, and then he's brooding a lot, and he's very stoic, and in the end, nothing changes, and that's like you win a Pulitzer Prize with that because it's such raw emotions, and then you're like, well, like you should read some, I don't know, like I mean, that's cool and all, but have you ever fought a demon king and almost lost all your friends? Because that's the same level of energy there, right? Um,
So
I know it's a metaphorical stuff.
no,
That's
no, no,
fun, but
no.
yeah,
I think part of the reason too is, so I mentioned that I did 2 degrees in college, and one of them was English,
yes,
and I I learned some things during that degree that are of use to
mm.
me, but a
Yeah,
lot of it was very frustrating, and I don't
mm.
necessarily recommend the same thing to other people looking to become an author, because especially in academia, there is a huge disdain for accessibility.
Yeah,
Like, if
it's hidden,
you
but it's there.
write something that's fun to read, like the fact that somebody actually enjoys reading it is actually seen as a detriment to a large
Yeah.
extent. Like, I was in a class, it was a writing class, and they were talking about like all the things that authors should pursue in their books. And I, raised my hand and I was like, well, and popularity, right? Because if you can't write a book that people want to read, all of this other stuff that you're trying to do and trying to accomplish and trying to communicate, it's not going to be very effective. And they're like, it will be effective for the people who are capable of accessing it. And I'm like, and how many of those are there exactly? Like, this is why I feel like Terry Pratchett is probably the best modern author, because you see his quotes all the time, quotes from his books, references to his books in like social threads, political threads, things like that. But like, he wrote silly books. He wrote comedy books. It's not hard to read a Terry Pratchett book. People read them because they're fun. They're funny. They make them laugh. But then sneakily, here are these lessons, these truths about the world that he's just, put in there.
Same as Sanderson is putting his mental illness in his books, right?
Yeah, no, I loved that. I loved that in Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
And I remember talking with a friend who was like, "Man, I hate reading about Kaladin. He's such a sad sack." And I'm like, "No, I mean,
He's got depression.
what?
He's got depression.
Yeah, he's depressed. And like, this is a very good depiction. I've been depressed before, and like, I feel this. I feel the difficulty in, just doing anything, even when it's
And
right there for you to grab. And I
that's the
love the fact that,
genius.
yeah, he's got a
I mean,
magic system that's about overcoming mental illness.
yeah,
Amazing.
yeah,
I
it's
love
about
it.
like internalizing your own truths, right? But like
Yeah.
the here's one thing. Did you know that Brandon Sanderson is he gets up every morning with the same amount of emotion? Like he doesn't have like these highs or lows. He doesn't wake up one morning and is like super sad or like super energetic. He has the same level of emotion the entire time. He's also incapable of feeling pain. I shit you not. Like it is true. You can look it up. He even
Okay.
said it himself on a
Okay.
podcast. And that is the genius of the man. Like he will take something that he fundamentally cannot feel himself, like, crippling depression,
Depression. Okay.
and writes that.
Yeah,
Right?
I would not have suspected that to
Yeah.
be
He's
but
like,
although it does make more sense of his ability to just like, I just write every day. Every day
I
I write.
mean,
I'm like, all right, Mr. Machine, you and
I
Pirate
mean, like,
Abba.
I Pirate Abba is a whole different beast. Um, like Pirate Abba, I don't know them, but I have had contact with their agent, and like I've seen them type on their thing. Their secret is not the speed of their typing. Their secret is that every single word just hits. They don't need to rewrite. Just goes.
I mean, yeah, like the typing speed isn't the typing speed isn't the limitation. Like, to me,
Mm,
it's the impressive thing is like when I write,
mm,
I'll write, if I get a really good flow, like I can
mm,
write like, like 1,000 words, in an hour ish.
mm,
But like
mm.
I can also like write a paragraph, not be sure what to do next, maybe go
Mm.
downstairs, make some lunch, come up, stare at the paragraph I just wrote a little bit more,
Yeah.
change a line, walk away again, put a load of laundry in the washing machine. Like, I have to imagine that never happens to Pirate Abba. Like, I haven't
No.
watched the streams because I feel like I would be
Mm.
personally like kind of I feel like I would have my self confidence shaken by seeing writing at that speed.
It's inspiring. It really is.
It should be. I agree,
Yeah.
and I'm inspired by it from a distance.
Inspired from distance. Okay, that's cool.
Yes, yeah. I don't think I can like. I don't think I
Yeah,
can like watch it from up close, as I know
like
what's
the
happening, but I don't think I can confront myself with that and not feel like
like in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like the machine that like shows you where you are in the universe.
Yes, total
Yeah.
perspective work. Yes, no, that I think that would be I think that's a good analogy.
I'm so glad that like sometime along like the last couple of years, I've came out of like a real big burnout when I started like writing again. Like not because I didn't get burned out because I was writing was before that, and then I started writing again. But at some point, I just stopped comparing myself to others and just like generally happy that they can do something, which is really nice, right? Because I don't know, like somehow I learned how to be happy with what I got, which is
That's
nice.
good. That's really
Yeah,
it's really good.
it still falters sometimes, but it's fun. It's great. But yeah, for ABBA or for Pirate, I'm just really like glad they can do that, and
Oh,
they seem
absolutely.
like I have another friend. And like I often mention him.
I love their work. I'm a huge fan.
It's like, okay, so here's the thing. I personally think, and please do not shoot me for this. I don't want to like say this, but I do think that people who like The Wandering Inn would also like Torchbearer. It's got the same thing of like emotional damage, but less cute stuff. Like I have less slice of life in there.
Well,
The entire first book is basically just like one giant fight scene, but anyway, no, like what ABBA kind of like does is like this like really cool mixture of like gruesome emotional harm inflicting that on their readers, like basically like burying them in bread, I guess, but also at the same time have like these really cool moments. I mean, I don't know, like I listened to Andy Parsnow narrating the next book, and I was like, after half an hour, I was just done. I was like, yep, that's Pirate Hour, all right. Because Andy was like narrating her heart out. Like she was so good. Like she's the perfect narrator for this book. But she was awesome. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going to happen after. I didn't really care about the characters. I just listened and I was like, oh God, no, 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 no. And that's the magic of Pirate ABBA. They can do that so well. Like I love that. But yeah, like for me personally, it's sometimes too much. It's also the reason why I didn't finish Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's such a wonderful book. The tension is so well done. Like it is. I always joke about the fact that Dinnerman is my enemy and he doesn't even know it yet. But it's just such a fucking good book. I just can't read it because it's too intense. And like Jeff Hayes told me, like, hey, that's actually a compliment. I'm like, yeah, that's quite true. Like it's just it's so good I can't read it. But yeah.
well, don't shoot me for this, but I will also say I think people who would like The Wandering Inn would really like Apocalypse Parenting because
I think so too.
Wandering Inn was one of my huge inspirations. It was one of the first it wasn't the first lit RPG I read, but it was one of them, and I definitely took a lot of inspiration from it in trying. I have more of a system than she does, but it's definitely less like numbers heavy than most lit RPG. I wanted to keep one of the things that I did going in is try to ask myself the question, all right, how do I make an interesting system that people can like plot and theory craft about, but cut out absolutely every piece of fluff I can? What is the minimum that I can have so that you don't have, especially for audiobook readers, the walls of text kind of thing that you need.
Shoutouts to Lars Machmüller. I love you, Lars.
But also I wanted to I love the fact that like her world, well, their world, we don't know Pirate Abba's gender. I have my personal feelings, but that's not necessarily accurate. Their world, it feels big. There's all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. Sometimes, Pirate will just take us there and like actually go into somebody's life. But even as you're walking down the characters walking down the street in a city, there's all kinds of things happening that aren't necessarily directly related to the main character. And I wanted to take some inspiration from that in terms of like at least doing like little cameos that give you glimpses into how the apocalypse is affecting everybody. Like I myself am not, I don't have a whole lot of insight into autism, but I have a lot of friends with autistic children. And so at one point, there in book 2, a previously nonverbal autistic child shows up who's taken mental speech. And that's a plot relevant point for a couple chapters. And basically they just didn't like physically talking, you know? But
Makes it feel weird, yeah.
But they it wasn't that they didn't want to communicate. So
Yeah.
I love doing little things like that where as you're going through, you know, I did not tell that boy's story, but I hope that I gave enough that you can wonder about that boy's story. That I've made him enough of a character that people who can connect to that can kind of latch onto it and think, and I like that.
That is awesome. I love that, and the reason I love that is because it's one of my weaknesses. I'm very internally focused, right? I struggle with remembering to put in details that make the world feel lived in. But I do love it if it happens. But I always adore it when people can do that and they put the intent of that in. That's nice. It's really good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we've been talking about like many books that we love and also enemies that we have. Dinnerman! But, yeah, there's a story behind that. I'm going to tell you after the podcast in the bonus stuff. I want to tell the story again.
Sounds good.
But we've never talked. Like I don't know this. I don't know Matt Dinnerman at all. Like
this is very one-sided.
It's very one like I'm quite sure that sometimes he sneezes and he's like Maddox. So I don't know. We'll see.
You hope that happens.
No, I don't. I don't like. I love this guy. Like he's great.
Okay.
Like I can't even joke about that. Like I hope you stub your toe on a Lego. No, like we've talked about like books that we love. But what's one book that you love and why is it awesome?
Oh man. Well, we've talked about Wandering In. I absolutely love that. It's honestly like when you sent me the things, I think I responded like some of these are toughies. And that was honestly the one that like floored me the most out of all the questions because like it's very difficult. You didn't even say tell me your favorite book. Like that question would have just shut me straight down. But like trying to like find of all the books that I've read, like, you know, even like just one to talk about, it's hard. I read a ton. I read probably over 100 books per year. And that is me having slowed down a lot since I was a child. Maybe it's only 60 these years. No, it's got to be more than that. Like I'm the kind of person who's like, oh, I'll read book 1 of this for this reason. Well, there's 7 more. I might as well read those before I go on to something else. Like,
I wish I could still do that. I'm a very, very particular reader, and I just don't have the time. Like when I interviewed, I think it was someone else who hasn't been on the podcast yet, like who hasn't been released on the podcast yet. I think it was Luke Shmilenko, and he and I like we both talked about the fact that we just can't read because it feels like work, right? Like to me, it really does. Like it really does feel like work. So I don't know. Like I'm sitting on the couch at night, and this is like I just can't. Like I can't grab my Kindle. It's just no.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. So what YouTube?
So like my favorite, I do actually have one favorite book. It's not lit RPG at all. It's
That's okay.
The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle.
Ooh, okay.
And it is my favorite book because Peter S. Beagle is some kind of wizard. Like, that's my favorite book by him. But if you read anything by him, like this guy can do in a short story what some authors can't do with like 1,000 pages. And he just takes your emotions and he makes them into what he wants them to be. I don't understand. I aspire to that. If I had another author besides, Pirate Abba, Terry Pratchett, Peter S. Beagle that I would mention, I am absolutely in awe of Douglas Adams' use of metaphor. Like, the ships hung in the sky in the same way that bricks don't. Like, what is that, 10 words? But, like, you've got everything there. You've got the shape of the ships. You've got the inherent wrongness of what they're doing. Like, you've got the objectionability of the whole situation. Like, you've got a perfect picture. You've got a perfect picture. And you've not only got a perfect picture of the ships, you've got a perfect picture of how the viewpoint character is feeling about the ships. Like,
yeah.
Damn.
That's so good.
That's and
really
like
good.
That's hardly the only like that's the one that's leaping to mind right now. But like that guy is so good with metaphors. Oh, it makes me
I think someone's gonna like fill the bingo card on this podcast. But whenever someone talks about like good quotes, like the entire time when you said like, oh, I'm struggling, I don't know what I would say. I was struggling so hard not to say like, have you read Cradle? Because
funnily enough, Cradle isn't even my favorite series by Will White. Like, I like it, but I have a soft spot for House of Blades. Like, people can say it's not as good as Cradle, and they can give very good arguments, and like, I can't even say they're completely wrong. But I've played tons of Magic the Gathering over the years, and the fact that House of Blades was conceived Traveler's Gate. House of Blades is the first book. Traveler's Gate. The fact that series was conceived as like somebody's attempt to like make a world that like based on the sort of the gameplay of Magic the Gathering is just so fun to me, and I think it does it so well that I've got a soft spot for it.
Have you read Slumdog Deck Builder?
I have not.
That would be something for you. And also, Shami Stovall's husband, John, wrote this mob-based deck builder. I think it's called Deck Builder Enforcer or something. I would have to look it up.
I like Shami Stovall. Maybe I'm saying
John Stovall.
Okay.
John Stovall is her husband, and he wrote like this really interesting like mob enforcer card builder story. It's really, really interesting. And there's also one that's where it's like about like demons. I think it might be the same one, but I can really recommend those. Like these are really nice.
I'll definitely check them out, and it sounds interesting. The fun thing about the Traveler's Gate series, if you haven't read it, is it's not actually a deck builder series at all. It's just built around there are these other planes. And as you deepen your connections to these planes, then you get access to bigger and more powerful magics. Which is basically, so like in Magic the Gathering, you're playing out these lands, which he represents. Yeah, which is
playing out these lands.
So I just... So, I don't know. I felt like it was a really good representation of the game without involving cards at all.
Yes.
Which I thought was really cool and clever.
So you're saying the explanation wasn't in the cards?
Yes. I was.
Okay, good. Thanks for the explanation. I'm going to... What?
Nothing.
Good. Well thought. Good. Well thought. No, okay. Like I don't know. Like Will Wright, like something about this man always makes me want to do puns. I don't know. Like the Cradle thing.
He claims that's his real last name. How do you get to be a lit RPG author and have your name like some kind of undead eldritch horror? I'm so suspicious of that.
Next to where I grew up, there's a village and there's a butcher's shop, and that butcher is called Stefan Lich. So Lich. So he's called Stefan Lich. And he has a butcher's shop called Stefan Lich. Like, come on.
I don't speak German. I'm sorry.
Lich, like the Lich
I
King.
know Lich, but what's the Stefan? Just Stephen Lich? Is it just
Stephen, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. That's just, I wasn't sure if the
yeah.
first name was
Yeah.
part of it. I'm sorry.
No, the first name is like
Yeah.
Stefan. Like he's
Yeah.
like it's.
No, I
Yeah.
would not name my butcher shop that. That does seem kind of suspicious. Like
I'm pretty sure he's just hiding in plain sight. But like also in
that's
Germany, no
amazing.
one knows what a Lich is.
I hope that that's the case, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
I don't know if I'd buy from his butcher shop, but I hope that that's the case.
they have very, very good mortadella.
I mean, I guess if their meats were good. I mean, all right.
Oh my
fine.
god. There's even more evidence. It's mortadella. Holy shit. We're onto something here.
I think you are.
Yeah.
You are.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, we'll wait. Yeah, that's a really cool last name. Like, unfortunately, I can't use mine, but yeah, that is a really cool last name too. But I can't use that. Anyway, thank you for sharing a book that you love and why is it awesome. But do you wanna talk about maybe shoutouts and do shoutouts?
Like shout outs for I guess I should have asked questions like just shout outs for like cool people or things that I
You
want
can
to
also
recommend
shout
to
out bad people like Matt Dinneman, for example. What?
No. So I don't even what I have to give a shout out to my husband because he's my alpha reader and my kind of my editor, I guess. He is a wonderful man and extremely good at criticizing things, which is often frustrating, but it's amazing as an author. He's also a very like you know how a lot of readers they'll be like, "Oh, I don't understand this," but you know maybe I will. No, he's like, "I don't understand this." He'll tell me every time, and so it makes my writing a lot better. He'll also like a lot of my fight scenes because like fight scenes are really hard to write. For me, they're hard to write, and so if he thinks I'm dodging one that should be there, he'll call me out on it, and I go, okay, fine. It always ends up making the book better, so I have to appreciate
Dodging
him.
fight scenes. Nice.
I mean,
okay.
As far as like authors and stuff, I have conversed via text. Obviously, nobody actually nobody sees Pirate Ava, but I have conversed via text with Pirate Ava, and they've been very kind. They were kind enough to give book 3 a shout out, so
nice.
I appreciate that. And I especially appreciate like the Lit RPG Authors Guild on Facebook because it is an amazing resource. All the people there are wonderful. Yeah, I'm sure I'm forgetting people, and which is why you told me in advance, but I'm not a very bright person sometimes. So
that's okay. I mean, like everyone who knows you will feel shouted out. I'm pretty sure.
Good.
But yeah. I know. Like I usually also do shout outs here, but because you forgot, I'm also going to pretend to forget, so it's nice.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
Yeah.
Very cool of you.
There we go. But this has been the Crit RPG podcast with the amazing Erin Ampersand. You and I were going to be talking about some more stuff. I wrote some stuff down here we're still going to talk about in the Patreon content. Like, for example, stupid sex jokes I have for book titles. How to write fight scenes, because I might have some tips that you might like. And stuff like, oh, what's this? Oh, yeah. So I really want to talk to you about how you're writing kids. That's really interesting. I kind of want to know that. And I want to talk to you about a book that I've been plotting that might need your help. Yeah. All right. But that's all the Patreon stuff. If you always want to check that out, go ahead. But otherwise, I think you have like many other podcasts to listen to on this channel. I think by the time that Erin's comes out, we are way over 50. So yeah, go ahead.
Thanks for listening, everybody, and check out my books. You probably had parents, even if you're not a parent. We're not weirder than Roombas, so it'll be fine. You'll be fine. If you don't like it, you can stop. That's my promise to you.
I mean, like, here's my comparison, right? So both Roombas and parents clean your room. They're both very handy like that. You're not gonna say anything to that. I can see that. Okay.
I,
The trick is, dear kids, to just not clean your room ever, and then at some point your mom will snap and do it for you. That's a trick. Anyway, thank you
or
everyone
I
for
just
listening and
shut the
watching,
door. But yeah.
and I'll see you next time. And if you're on Patreon, the show goes on.